Hey YouTube, what's going on? Snowflarkyzemos today with another deck profile. It's an update to my Phantasm Spiral Stun deck, Pacifist Stun. This is a deck centered around the Phantasm Spiral cards, which were a series of cards that came out to support normal monsters, particularly water normal monsters. And this has mainly been my go-to deck ever since it came out. I've given this deck so much playtime. It's my primary play deck on Master Duel. Just a deck I really enjoy because I love normal monsters, and I just love what Pacifist does to make them playable. This is a very powerful stun deck that might not be up everyone's alley, but it's certainly up mine. With that said, let's get into the cards. Starting up with our monsters, I am playing 2 copies of Megalosmasher X. Megalosmasher X is a 4-star dinosaur type monster with 2000 attack. That just makes it the highest attack normal monster that we can normal summon without tribute, and that gives it this spot in the deck. 2000 attack is very nice, but we're not playing 3 of it because we're going to play some other water monsters so that we can play There Can Be Only One and take advantage of the different types available to us. One of those water monsters includes a copy of Giant Red Sea Snake. It's an aqua type monster with 1800 attack, a 4-star water monster. Water is of course very important because of using sea stealth attack, and of course aqua is important because it's different than dinosaurs, so we can have both of them on the field. And that just makes it nice. And for the last monster I'm playing 1 Sea Serpent Warrior of Darkness. If you have Yugioh, that's definitely the second best one to be playing, but I really like that Red Sea Snake. And Sea Serpent Warrior of Darkness, of course, is here for the memes. Yeah, you gotta love it. 1800 attack, 4-star water monster. This one is a Sea Serpent, so again, a different type. And that just makes it work out pretty well. That is it for the monsters. Incredibly low monster count. Next, going into our spells, we are playing 3 copies of Pacifist the Phantasm City, the big card, the named card, the reason for the deck. Pacifist the Phantasm City is a field spell that is always treated as Umi, which is pretty cool. Now, you can't normal or special summon any effect monsters during the turn you use any of this card's effect, which is fine. You're never going to do that in this deck. But essentially, when a normal monster is summoned onto the field, you can search a Phantasm Spiral card and add it from the deck to your hand. We have a lot of powerful trap cards that are going to be done so. And Pacifist the Phantasm City has an effect that when your opponent activates a card or effect and you do not control a token, you can summon a Phantasm Spiral token, which is a 8-star monster, 2000 attack, 2000 defense, and does count as a normal monster, so that will trigger your Pacifist. And that effect is not once per turn, and it pretty much works anytime. It's kind of a ruling's nightmare, but essentially, if your opponent activates any card and you don't have a token after the card resolves, you can summon a token. So even if you have the token and they dark hole it to get rid of the token, your token's coming right back. And that makes it quite a pain to deal with. It just always gives you a little extra monster offensive capability. The field spell supplies your own normal monsters so that we don't have to run as many in our deck, and allows you to, of course, search during your opponent's turn. And just an incredible card. We play 3 at this because we definitely want to see this card as soon as possible. It's necessary to make everything work. To help make that happen, we're also playing our 1 copy of Terraforming. Just searches a field spell from the deck and puts it in our hand. Very nice. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Fish Sonar. Fish Sonar was a great card that we got from the legendary duelist, Duels from the Deep. Fish Sonar says we can add a level 7 or lower monster from the deck to our hand that either mentions Umi or is a water normal monster. So that, of course, is any of these. Then if we control Umi, we can special summon a water normal monster from our deck, which, of course, is any of these. If you wanted, you could throw in a copy of any big water monster just to summon off of Fish Sonar, but I'm playing a little safe and not doing that. But it's a great card, can get 2 monsters out of our deck, can get us a monster in our hand. I'm only playing 2 copies of it because it's a once per turn, and you know, even if we don't get monsters, it's not a big deal as long as we have Phantasm ready to go. Next up, I'm playing 3 Pot of Duality. There's no need for us to special summon on our turn. So what's nice is being able to look at the top 3 cards of our deck, pick one to add to our hand, and shuffle the rest. This gets us whatever missing card we need. Is it Pacifist? Is it a normal monster? Is it a floodgate? Whichever one we're missing, we'll get it. Continuing on, I am playing 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. This deck does not really utilize the extra deck at all, so we're going to turn that into card advantage. We're going to banish 3 to 6 random extra deck cards face down, draw a card for every 3 that we did. So if we banish 6, we draw 2. That gets us 1 extra card. We're not generating a ton of advantage, so that extra card can get us exactly what we need. And last, I'm playing the 1 copy of Card of Demise. Very spell and trap card heavy deck with a low monster count. Card of Demise is just a natural card to include because it's a nice top deck to refill our board with back row because we can set all our spell and traps that we'll draw instead of discarding them. Because this card draws until we have 3 cards in our hand. In exchange, we can't special summon. Our opponent takes no battle damage this turn. And of course, we have to discard our hand at the end of the turn. So not a big deal, just a nice little card to have. And that is it for the spell cards. Next, going into our trap cards, I am playing 3 copies of Phantasm Spiral Battle. This is one of the trap cards that we can search off of our pacifist spell. If all monsters you control are normal monsters, minimum of 1, you can target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. And of course, if Umi is on the field, we can play this card from our hand. So it's pretty nice. Pacifist will search us this card that we can play from our hand as long as we have a spell and trap card zone, and it's just a quick play, pop a card. That's pretty nice. We'll definitely use that. It's not a hard once per turn either, so we can play multiple pacifists. The Phantasm Spiral Battle just makes it very nice. I'm also playing 1 copy of Phantasm Spiral Power. This is a nice little monster effect negation and battle trick that we can search for pacifists. Essentially, if all monsters we control are normal monsters, we can target a monster our opponent controls. It loses 1,000 attack and defense, and of course, its effect is negated. Now that's pretty nice. Just like Phantasm Spiral Battle, if Umi's on the field, we can play this from our hand. So just a nice little option to have a little battle trick, a little monster effect negation. We can search it when we need it. But the real reason we don't play more of it is because we're playing 3 copies of Skill Drain. That's right, TCG still has Skill Drain at 3. Very powerful in this deck. Normal monsters don't have effects, so if we can play this continuous trap card that turns off monster effects while they're on the field, that'll just help us a lot because opponents' monsters are not going to like that. And we don't mind at all because we have normal monsters. It brings them down to our level. Very powerful card. Definitely going to take advantage of playing that at 3 in this deck as long as I can. Next up, I'm also playing 3 copies of There Can Be Only One, everyone's favorite floodgate. It's nasty powerful. It's a continuous trap that says each player can only control 1 monster of a certain type on the field. So many decks and archetypes are built around monsters of the same type that this will completely render them helpless unless they have the out for it. And we don't mind at all because we have quite a bit of different monsters in our deck. We have aquas, we have sea serpents, we have dinosaurs, we could play reptiles. Our token is a worm type monster, so none of ours conflict, but our opponents will certainly be hurting. It is a very powerful card. Next, I'm also playing 2 copies of Summon Limit. If I don't have Skill Drain, if I don't have There Can Only Be One, Summon Limit is still incredibly powerful. Makes it so neither player can summon more than 2 times per turn. That's just, really nasty. We can summon the token during our opponent's turn. It does put a hard limit on how many times we can recur our token, so you got to mind that. But it's going to do so much more work against most opponents because when they can't summon a bunch of monsters, they can't really get into their extra deck monsters that can out our board. The real reason continuous traps are so powerful in this is this card, Sea Stealth Attack, which I'm playing 3 copies of. Sea Stealth Attack, of course, when this card's activated, you can activate a Umi from your hand or graveyard. So if your pacifist is removed, we can play Sea Stealth to get it back. And then, of course, we can, while Umi's face up on the field, we can use this card's effects. We get the ability to, once per turn, we can banish a water monster we control until the end phase. Our face-up spell and trap cards cannot be destroyed. So if your opponent has the Harpy's Feather Duster, but we have this, boom, our cards are not being destroyed. Lightning Storm 2, incredibly powerful card. It's also nice because you can just use it to tag out your normal monsters when they would be destroyed, or you can tag out your token if you want to re-trigger the summon and search another Phantasm Spiral card. All good options for this deck as well. And it's not done yet because we got one more effect. At the start of the damage step, if our monster is battling that water monster whose original level is 5 or higher, we can destroy the opponent's monster. So our token is an 8-star token, so that means when it attacks things, it will just destroy them. Nice for getting around face-down cards or monsters that have too big of a body for our 2000 attack guys to deal with. Just an incredibly good card. Playing it at 3 because we also want to see it, and it's not very easily searchable. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Torrential Tribute. Torrential Tribute works really well with this deck because we can wait till our opponent summons some monsters, blow up the board. You know, if we lose our token, no big deal. Our token's coming back. If we got C Stealth Attack, we can tag out our regular normal monsters so they don't get destroyed, and they'll be back next turn to punch our opponent. Combos really well with Summon Limit. The only thing to keep in mind, of course, is if your opponent activates a normal monster or activates a monster effect off of a normal summon or a special summon, and it activates when they hit the field and you try to tame Torrential, the effect will activate because the monster will go to the graveyard. So sometimes you got to be a little disciplined with this card. If you want to go all in on this Torrential strategy, I would say maybe recommend maxing out on your copies of Summon Limit, because that card with this is a very nasty combination. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. Solemn Judgment just protects our board once it's set up. We pay off our life to negate a normal or special summon or a spell or trap card activation. And if we do, destroy the cards. You know, if we have our floodgates, our opponent has the out, we can say no to the out. So just a very good card to have. We want to protect our setup as much as we can. Next, I'm also playing 1 Fist of the Unrivaled Tenyi. It's basically Solemn Judgment, except we just have to control a non-effect monster, which is any of our normal monsters or the token. The only change, of course, is that it doesn't destroy the card like Solemn does, which, you know, you got to keep that in mind. So if you're negating a monster effect, it's not, you know, it's just going to negate the effect. But, of course, this card also has a secondary effect that if this card is destroyed by our opponent and is sent to the graveyard while it's face down, we can special summon a non-effect monster from our extra deck. So just cram your extra deck with 15 non-effect monsters and you'll be good to go. And last, I'm playing 1 copy of Heavy Storm Duster just for a little added oomph against spell and trap back row based decks. You know, this is a trap card that can destroy 2 spell or traps in exchange for a battle phase. Really powerful to play on our opponent's turn, especially on their end phase after they set some cards. Go 2 for 1, no big deal. Of course, our Phantasm Spiral battles take care of a lot, and we're not as afraid of back row, having so many ways to tag our monsters out safely and protect our back row with C Stealth Attack. But it's still important to have. There can be only, I mean, you know, Heavy Storm Duster is just a decent card. You can definitely swap it out if you don't have to worry about back row decks as much. And that's it for the main deck. Not much to talk about with extra deck. We're not really going into it. You just cram it with non-effect monsters in case Fist of the Unrivaled Tenyi gets destroyed. But one card I do want to talk about that I play in my extra deck at 3 is Yugioh the Risen. It's a rank 4 non-effect monster. It's got 2950, which is less attack than the biggest targets you can summon off of a destroyed Fist of the Unrivaled Tenyi, like Blue Eyes. But it's pretty important because it is a water type monster, and that means we can tag it out with C Stealth Attack. And that's important for not only protecting this monster, but also our Phantasm Spiral traps need to have only normal monsters on the field in order to work. So summoning out a non-effect monster from your extra deck will cancel that out because not a non-effect monster is not a normal monster. So just keep that in mind. It being a water type means that we can tag it out with C Stealth, and then we can play our Phantasm Spiral battles and powers before it comes back at the end of the turn. So that is it for the Pacifist Phantasm Spiral deck profile. Always good old reliable for me. One of my favorite decks to play. One of the decks I've just performed the best with over time. It's just an incredibly powerful stun strategy that if you like it, and if you like normal monsters, if you like stun, definitely something to look into this deck for you. Um, it's pretty great. I love it. Anyway, I'd love to know what you think. Appreciate you all checking out the deck profile, and I'll catch you in the next one.